Good afternoon and welcome to this edition of AARP Massachusetts Fraud Talk Tuesdays. We are here the second Tuesday of each month from 12 to 12:30 p.m., where we discuss different topics, scam, and how you can protect yourself and your family from becoming a victim. My name is Gerald, and I am a volunteer with the AARP Massachusetts Speakers Bureau. And our guest today is Deb, is also a volunteer with the AARP Massachusetts Speakers Bureau. Scammers use technology to steal your money, personal and information, and our identity. Today, we'll take a look at how technology can also be used as a friend in protecting yourself. You may have joined us today with questions already in mind. If you have, please put them into the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. If questions come up during the presentation, please also insert those into the Q&A. This session is being recorded. You will receive a link to this recording that you can share with your family and friends. At the end of the presentation, we will share a page with links to a number of resources which will also be sent to you. So Deb, can you start with those annoying robocalls?
Oh, yes. Next slide. Okay, just wait for the slide to come up. Thank you. One of the most annoying things that we have to deal with on a daily basis are robocalls. Scammers and others blanket America with billions of illegal robocalls annually, more than 50 billion robocalls last year, and many of those originate from outside the United States. Now, robocallers use a of techniques to get you to answer, including something called spoofing. And that tricks you. It tricks your caller ID into displaying fake phone numbers, making the call look as if it's coming from your area code or even maybe your neighborhood, not from another country. They can also fool your caller ID using fake names like a charity, a bank, city hall, all sorts of things. The idea is to trick you into thinking that's who is calling you. And if you answer, the robotic voice on the other end might claim to represent the gas company, the electric company, a name brand company like Amazon. That's a very common one. Or a government agency like Social Security Administration or the IRS. They also do this using robo-texts. So instead of a call, it's coming in as a text on your mobile device. Americans received more than 225 billion robotexts in 2022. Some of the recent robotexts that I've actually gotten, one was for overdue road tolls that I supposedly owed. Another one was for unpaid parking tickets. Another one was package delivery that had incomplete information. I need to put more information on it. Those were the sorts of things they were trying to sound like a legitimate outfit, but fool you into answering them, and it's actually a scam. So Gerald, that was a good beginning. What else would you like to know?
Many of these calls focus on offering benefits, but how many now focus on fear, something that could happen if you do not respond? So Deb, what can you do to protect yourselves?
Slide, please. Slide, please. Thank you, Gerald. I'll get to that. All right. So first of all, here are some tips. Don't answer calls from unknown numbers. If you do answer, they're going to target you with more spam calls. If you answer a robocall, you should hang up immediately. Also, if you do answer the call, don't engage with the caller. It's best not to speak or to press any keys to respond to a prerecorded message, I'm sorry. Taking any action will also signal to scammers that it's a live number and they'll target you with more calls. They'll actually share your number with other scammers. They'll sell your number as a live number, and that just creates all more problems. Don't let your guard down. Never, ever give out personal information such as account numbers, social security number, your mother's maiden name. you don't want it you don't want to give any of this information out in respect to unexpected calls or if you're suspicious about a call. And you can talk to your phone company about call blocking tools it might have, and also check into apps that you can download to your mobile device to block unwanted calls. Some of these are free, some of them are low cost. One of the call blocking well-known apps is NoMoRobo, as in no more robocalls. It's sometimes free. It might be free for AT&T and Verizon customers, but check with your carrier. And also, to block telemarketing calls, you can register your number with the FTC's National Do Not Call Registry at donotcall.gov. Legitimate telemarketers are going to use that site to identify people who don't want to receive telemarketing calls. And so you got to get on their opt-out list and you will get a lot fewer legitimate calls. But as you can imagine, scammers pay no attention to donotcall.gov and they'll just keep on calling. Gerald, thank you. That was a lot of good stuff. What else?
Yeah, we all use the internet. What can we do to protect ourselves from online?
Slide, please. One suggestion is to set up an online account with your bank or financial institution and check it frequently. If a fraudulent transaction occurs in the beginning or the middle of your statement cycle, you're not going to know about it until your monthly statement arrives. Also, getting the statement electronically could be more secure than getting it in your mailbox. Unless you have a locking mailbox, these bank statements can be stolen, and then there's a lot of information about you that has been stolen. And speaking of the U.S. Postal Service, you might want to sign up for the free service that they offer called Informed Delivery. With Informed Delivery, you get a daily email indicating how many pieces of mail you are scheduled to be delivered to you that day, and also what each piece of mail looks like. So Informed Delivery shows you what should be coming, and if something doesn't arrive, you should check into it. There may be a problem there. So that's a really great service. I know that we have that, and it is. I just like to know exactly what's coming today in the mail. Gerald, that's some examples, but what else would you like to know?
Well, I mean, you have some great suggestions there. I mean, if we're traveling away for a few days from our home, so we can keep track of incoming mail and packages, are there any other banking suggestions you may have?
Next slide, please. Oh, you can arrange for your bank to notify you about an unusual activity, and you should also make sure that you're checking your credit reports. There are three major credit reporting agencies. There's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and you are entitled to one free credit report from each of these three credit reporting agencies. And if you time it right, since there's three of them, you could do you could ask for your free credit report 4 months apart. Like do Experian, and then 4 months later do Equifax, and 4 months later do TransUnion. So you actually get an idea throughout the year of what is going on with your credit report. And the official website to use is annualcreditreport.com. That is how you would get access to your free credit reports. The other thing I would say is consider freezing your credit reports for best protection. Now, freezing means nobody can go in and look at your credit report like if they wanted to open a new credit card or anything like that. Your credit report is frozen and it can't be opened. That's a little bit annoying if you yourself are looking for to apply for credit, because you're going to have to unfreeze it just for that time that you want to check out getting your own new credit, but it keeps anybody else from being able to use your credit report to establish any kind of credit situation. Thank you. Gerald, what else is going on?
Well, just before we jump right to the next question, I think that is a great ending, what you said about freezing your credit reports, because I've had a chance to do that myself. And like you said, it can be a little annoying when you go to use your credit card or something, and then you have to go back, oh, what happened, and unfreeze it. So, but also that lets you know that you froze it, it is working, and it works well. But, we're using technology. Technology has changed the way we do business, make purchases. I've heard that cash is king, but it's not used as much as it used to be to make purchases. Any suggestions?
Yeah, thanks. Slide, please. Okay, I'm going to talk about using a credit card for purchases using a personal example. All right. There are lots of consumer protections when you use a credit card, especially the fact that there is a maximum liability of $50 no matter what. Now, typically, your credit card will waive that. That's really what most of them do. But at least you know for a fact you cannot ever owe more than $50 if your card was lost or stolen and somebody used it in an unauthorized way. Well, let me talk about my situation. Last summer, I had a $12,000 plus charge on my credit card last summer. What it was is somebody had ordered several airline tickets from Florida to Medellin, Colombia, using my credit card number. I have no idea where the hack was, but I saw it. I checked my credit card activity about 2 to 3 times a week. So I spotted that fraudulent charge actually the day after it was put on. So immediately I called the credit card fraud department, which is right there on the back of your credit card. You'll have that number that you can call. And when I made this call, that officially started the dispute process because I was disputing these 10 charges totaling over $12,000 that had been put on my card, and they were completely unauthorized. So this call to fraud department starts the dispute process. It also is where your card that was hacked, your card that was unauthorized, that was used in an unauthorized way, that card is closed out, and they start the process of giving you a new credit card number to replace it. And it's about usually 7 to 10 days before you see the new credit card show up. But that starts the whole process. Then the fraud department did their research. They kept in touch with me probably about once a week or so. I'd get an update in my physical mail telling what had happened so far. And it's important to know that by law, you are not required to pay the amount that's in dispute until the case is settled. You can't be charged any interest on that amount in dispute until the case is settled. But you still, of course, have to pay any amounts that are not in dispute. That doesn't change at all. So the credit card company issued me a provisional credit pretty much right away, but it was about 2 months before I got the permanent credit because they had there were like 10 different transactions that they had to examine and go in and do the research on and find out that, yeah, I did not authorize those. They were all scams. So something I just want to mention too about this is I called the fraud department to get it started, but there is actually a federal law called the Fair Credit Billing Act, which gives you the official way to do this, which is you notify the credit card company within 60 days of what the exact problem is. They have to reply to you within 30 days that they received your inquiry and they're working on it. And within 90 days, they have to have the thing settled. That is the official law. And if you want to be super, super sure that you've got your dispute process properly working, it's a good idea to do that too. But honestly, it was the 1970s when they passed that law, and it took a lot of time for all the research to happen, and that's why the timelines are so long. When you call the fraud department, they're working on it basically that minute. And so I actually had the thing settled before they actually would have had to respond to me. So anyway, that's what it is about credit cards. Slide, please.
Whoops,
Slide, please.
there we go.
For
Yes.
debit cards. Oh, yeah, there we are. Okay. So now if you use a debit card, there's a lot less consumer protection than if you use a credit card. If you're using a debit card, the money is withdrawn at once from your bank account. So the money is already gone and you have to try to get it back. And the way the law on that works is if you report a lost or stolen debit card within 2 days, there's a fixed $50 maximum liability. If you don't report it till day 3 to day 60, there's a $500 maximum liability. And if you report it after 60 days, that's making the assumption probably you've already gotten 2 monthly statements from the bank. You have unlimited liability. Everything that's in that account could be at risk. Now, if you compare that to the $50 absolute maximum liability when using a credit card, you can see why, whether you're talking about physical purchases or online purchases, it's much, much safer to use a credit card than to use a debit card. In fact, some people choose to have an ATM card rather than a debit card, which only works at an ATM, and you can't use it as you would use a debit card when you're at a point of sale terminal, like when you're checking out at the grocery store or checking out at a department store. Okay, so that's pretty much that. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, the one last thing I wanted to say about that is you still, even if you just have an ATM card, you still have to watch for scammers, because you can have someone can put a skimmer device on the ATM machine, and that's skimming your information as the transaction is going through. Just like with a credit card or a debit card, there could be skimmers when you are checking out at the store, and you have to watch out for skimmer devices there too. Next slide, please. Okay. All right, I want to talk to you about what you do if your debit card is stolen. First of all, you should notify your bank. They can change your account number to prevent further access. You should file a fraud alert with Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, and our resource slide at the end is going to have more information about that. Check your transactions frequently. Look for any fraudulent charges and ask your bank to reverse those charges. And rather than using debit cards, as I said, some financial institutions will offer ATM cards, and there's no Visa or MasterCard logo on them. You can only use them at the bank and at the ATM. And you can't use them to make purchases, but you still have to watch for skimmers that might be at the ATM machine. Gerald, that was a lot, I admit. So I'm sure you have something else to ask me.
Yeah, Deb, I have something called a two-factor authorization for several of my online accounts, like Amazon and some of the other online financial accounts. Can you describe how that works and why it's important?
Okay, slide, please. Okay, two-factor authorization. Your first factor when you log in online is your password, but then they will usually ask you now to have another authorization. Usually it's a code that you receive by text or by phone call or by email, and that creates a double check that you are who you say you are. And to set up two-factor authorization, you go to the security setting on your online account, and you follow the instructions for two-factor authorization. You choose how you want to receive the code, which will be this extra authorization you have to add when you're logging in. It could be a phone call, it could be by text, it could be email, and there are some apps that you can use for authorization as well. Two of the more well-known ones are Google Authenticator and Authy, as it's called. There's new multi-factor verifications that are coming up, facial recognition, fingerprinting, all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot out there, but definitely using two factors, your password plus that extra code that gets sent to you by text, phone call, or email. Now, credit reporting company, the Experian, has warned that scammers are now using bots, automated programs, to convince people to share their two-factor authentication codes. The bot makes a robocall or sends a text that appears to come from a legitimate entity like your bank. It asks you to authorize a particular charge, and if you don't recognize the charge, it'll ask you to enter your authorization code. In reality, the bot is just trying to log into your account. It needs that code to break in. It's using this as a break-in method. So two-factor authorization codes work as intended, but if a criminal is able to convince you to share it, then it has no value. So anytime you are prompted by an unsolicited communication to share a recently received authentication code, it is a scam. Change your password for that account as soon as possible. You have to remain vigilant. That is your best tool to protect yourself. Gerald, what else is going on?
Yeah, in last month's Fraud Talk Tuesday, Deb, one of our attendants asked if we could provide some information about reverse image search. Can you tell us what that is and how it works?
So, slide, please. Yeah, a reverse image search is very, very useful. It allows you to search online for images that are identical to the image that you possess. So I'll give you an example. Suppose that you have a house, you're looking to rent a house, and you see a nice house, and you think you may put in a deposit on it because a deposit is required, but you reverse search the picture of that house. And you can find out if there's any identical images with other addresses advertised, where else it shows up on the internet. So it could actually be a scam to collect multiple deposits. All right. Or another example, say a new love interest sends you their photo. If you reverse search that photo of that person and you find identical images, they might have multiple identities online. That's sort of a signal that it's a romance scam. So Google is a very major reverse, they have a very major reverse image search tool. And there's another one that has a really good search tool called TinEye. Okay, Gerald, anything else?
Yes, Deb, could you tell us what about using a virtual private network?
Okay, good question. Good question. Slide, please. Okay. Okay. Hold on a second. What did I do here? I just sure. Okay. Yes. Google had no. Go back one slide, please. Go back one slide, please. Okay. Google has added a really useful feature to its search. So if you do a search on Google and the query comes up with some options, you can find 3 dots at the end of the answer that came up to your query, and you can look at those dots and it will tell you what the source of that information is. Like, so on this one, AARP, you see that the source for the information was the Fraud Watch Network. That is exceptionally useful to be able to track what the source of the answers you're getting when you do a query, what that source is. Also, another thing you can do with an internet search is if you suspect that a person or a company might be fraudulent or somehow using unscrupulous behavior, you can do an online search with that name, including a word like fraud or scam or complaint in your search, and you might very well find some really relevant information. So that's good stuff. All right, Gerald, anything else?
We were talking about what about using a virtual private network, a VPN?
Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, first of all, let me just summarize that antivirus and anti-malware software are essential because they help detect and remove malicious software from your devices. These programs scan your files and monitor your system for suspicious activities. It's important to keep your software updated to protect yourself against the latest threats. Interestingly, many experts now suggest that built-in security features in a modern operating system like Microsoft Defender or Windows are often sufficient if you keep your system updated and follow good practices. So you must, when you see the updates come and it says you need to update for security or anything like that, and it's coming from your Microsoft, or it's coming from Chrome, or wherever it's coming from that's legitimate that you have, you need to do those updates because usually it's updating to keep up with different types of scams and frauds and viruses and malware. So it's really, really important. Now, you mentioned virtual private network. Virtual private networks, the way these work is you protect your identity by encryption, and a VPN is a powerful tool for protecting your identity online by encryption. AARP recommends using a virtual private network, which is often called a VPN, to protect your online identity and data. It works like this. A VPN encrypts your data and scrambles your connection, making it difficult for others to see what you're doing online. It also changes your computer's IP address to hide your location. And it's exceptionally important, super important, to use a VPN when you're in a public site. You're at a a cafe and you're using the Wi-Fi at the public Wi-Fi at the cafe, or at a hotel and it's public Wi-Fi, whatever it happens to be, if it's public Wi-Fi, you've got to use a VPN. You can sometimes some of the software packages like McAfee or Norton include VPNs as part of their package. You can also find other VPNs online, but it's really important if you have if you're using Wi-Fi. Gerald, let's go back to you again.
Yeah, let's check on some questions in the Q&A. That I think we have like 6 in the
Ooh.
Yeah, we do. Let's see. One of them says, how do you freeze your credit? If you to freeze your credit, you need to go to actually, there's 2 things. One is to get a credit alert, which simply says if anyone's looking at your credit, you're going to be notified. That you must do with one of the 3 credit bureaus, and they will pass the information on to the other. These credit alerts last for 1 year. A credit freeze, you must go to all 3 credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and you must freeze your credit with each one of those. Once you freeze it, it stays frozen until you unfreeze it. The scary part of freezing your credit is, to do this, they need one piece of information, and that is your Social Security number, which we all should guard with our lives. So when you freeze your credit, make sure that you are actually contacting the actual credit bureau, and not when you Google something, take the first number that comes up. Make sure that you're going to each of these, the right sites for these credit bureaus. Someone says, how about debit cards? We talked about debit cards, and debit cards, as Deb said, when somebody gets a hold of your debit card and they steal money, it's gone. It comes right out of your checking account. As opposed to a credit card, you never lose it until a bank says, wait a minute, you really did make that purchase. Yeah. Someone says, I know, someone I know has a voicemail that says, this number does not accept solicitations. Is this a paid service? That I'm not sure of. That we can do more research on. I don't know that. And we have a very long one here. And I received the same type of call. It comes from, quote, CVS, and they're asking for information. CVS doesn't call you on a regular basis. They want to say, I get these messages say they want to update their records. No, they don't need to update my records. If I want to update my records, I will go on to the site that I always use for my pharmacy with CVS Caremark, and I will update it there. But I will not, do not respond to anybody that just calls you out of the blue. They're not there to help you at all. Somebody says, does swiping a card rather than inserting it to avoid a skimmer?
You mean tapping?
Tapping, yeah.
Yeah.
Tapping, I always insert my card because once I pull the card out, that transaction stops. If I'm tapping it and I walk away, sometimes I'm not sure that by my walking away that transaction is stopped. So I insert my card all the time. The one thing that we do see with skimmers is a lot of it has to do with swiping the card, those skimmers. But even putting it in with the chip can also be a problem. So if you're going to use a device, especially if something is away from where people are all the time, be very careful and take a look at that device to make sure that there isn't a skimmer on it, that something doesn't look odd. Let me spend 1 minute here and share one more screen, and we'll look at the, let me do a share screen, and we'll look at the resources list, and you'll get a copy of this resource also. And share, and slideshow from beginning. You're going to get this slide, and when you get this, you can click on this link here to find out how to do a reverse image search. It'll bring you to a site that Google has put together. Deb mentioned that when you Google anything and the list of results come up, you have the URL right here, and Google, this is only with Google now. Google has put these 3 dots, vertical dots, and if you click on those, it will bring you up a list of other places that have verified that this site is legit and who's actually verified it. We have another link here that you'll get for the do not call. It's not perfect, but it'll stop some calls from coming in, and any number of calls that you can get from coming in will help.
But those would be genuine calls. Those wouldn't be scam calls. They don't pay any attention to it if it's scam.
Scammers don't care about do not call. There's also this link here to a victim support group. AARP has developed a virtual victim support group. People who have been victimized by fraud, they have been submitted to trauma. And one way of overcoming that trauma is to tell your story. And you can sign up for these virtual support groups. They last for an hour. They happen a number of times a week. If you click on this, you can find the ones that are coming up in the next week. Some people show up once and don't show up for another 4 or 5 weeks. Some people show up every week. Some people aren't ready to tell their story yet, but telling your story is one way of healing. And these support groups are very, very, very important to people who have been scammed. And here's the link. Somebody asked about how to freeze your credit. If you click on this link here, you'll find out how to freeze or to get a credit alert for yours. If you think you have been victimized by a fraud or a scam, you can always call the AARP Fraud Watch helpline at 877-908-3360. And it operates from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. And even if you have a question, they can answer the question. If you call and you've been victimized, somebody will call you back within 24 hours. You connect with somebody initially. They're going to take some information down, and someone will call within 24 hours, oftentimes the same day. And they're going to help you figure out what you need to do to keep you and your family safe moving forward, and also how to deal with some of that trauma. For anyone on the call, we have quite a few people on today. If you have been victimized by a scam and would like to share your story, you can contact Polly Hunt from our Massachusetts State Office at mhunt@aarp.org, and she can connect with you. And if you have a story you want to tell, to share with folks, because that's how we learn from this, contact her and she can connect with you. So if that is all, I'm going to stop sharing.
Gerald, you want to just see us out?
All right. Thank you, Deb, for your valuable information. Staying informed is a key to protecting yourself. AARP offers a wealth of resources, including articles, webinars, and Fraud Watch Network, which provides up-to-date information on the latest scams and how to avoid them. Regarding educating yourself on new threats and prevention strategies can make a big difference. And join us for AARP Massachusetts Fraud Talk Tuesday, February 11th, and we will discuss romance scams, or sometimes called friendship or companionship scams, because these scams rely heavily on your emotions. They are often the most difficult to convince someone that it is a scam. Remember, you can be a fraud fighter. If you spot a scam, you can stop a scam. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.